Hello and welcome to another Fourth Branch interview. I'm Russell Dolag from UT in Yap State in the FSM. Thank you for joining us today. Today I'm joined by Surangel Whipps Jr. from Palau, entrepreneur and politician and also presidential hopeful. Just for people who don't really know you and the viewers back home, if you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
I'm a local boy, but you may look at my skin as a little white because my mom is from Maryland. So I was born in actually Baltimore, Maryland. We lived there until I was 3 years old, and then we went to Pohnpei. We lived in Pohnpei for a year, and then after that, my mom got a job teaching in the elementary school in Palau, so we moved to Palau when I was 4. And then I stayed in Palau until I was out of high school. I graduated from high school in '85, and then I went to a university here in the States. I went to Virginia Tech for a year and a half, and then I went to Andrews University for a year and a half. I graduated, went back to Palau, and in 1989 I worked for President Edpisong as a special assistant for about a year and a half. Then I went back to graduate school in 90. And then I graduated from UCLA in 92.
Wow.
With a master's in business, kind of in entrepreneurship. That's what basically I took classes that I thought would help me help contribute to our family business. And one of the things that I had an opportunity of being part of was I got a fellowship to go to Georgetown for the summer. They have a program it's called MBAs in Government. And it was really a program where they take MBAs from all over the U.S. And take you to Washington. You basically learn how you can participate in the government, whether it's working for the FDIC at the time. There was a lot of SNL failures at the time, so that was one of the big things that they were talking about. How to be a regulator, or, they said when you go to graduate school, especially for business, your objective is to make money, right. But you should also give back, and that's one of the things. At least they always pushed at UCLA was you should always you make money, but you should always give back. And so I guess that's what I'm trying to do now. Or I've been doing, yeah. So.
Well, speaking of what you're doing now, and kind of just cutting into the interview right away, tell us about your campaign platform.
Well, when I was, and this should go back to graduate school, when I was in graduate school, one of the things that my classmates would always ask me is, so how come you're not going to any of the job interviews? Because they have every week, it's either Microsoft or Intel or all the Wall Street firms are in there interviewing. And they would ask me, so why aren't you doing any of the interviews? And I said, well, for me, it's already mapped out. I'm going home. That's where I believe the opportunity is, and that's my parents said, you're going to school, and when you're done, you're coming home. So it was clear to me, and I ended up back home. And one of the things that I think, for me, and at least visiting with a lot of the Palauans that live outside of Palau, I feel that they left Palau because they were searching opportunities. And then even in Palau now, you see a lot of young Palauans leaving. And they're leaving because they're looking for better opportunities, or you could say the American dream. So really what I feel that is lacking in Palau, and we've done a lot of great things, famous for the environment, but that Palauan dream, for a Palauan to have a Palauan dream, does not exist. Their dream is the American dream. So for me, it's restoring the Palauan dream. So there is no question, when you're done with school, you want to go back home. Or you want to do your best because the opportunities are there. There's a good paying job, there's business opportunities. Some of my classmates that live in the U.S. say, well, we're afraid to come back home because the hospital is the morgue.
Oh.
Those kinds of things. Those are things that I think we need to improve on. And then, you know, others say, well, we got to wait for our kids to get out of high school because, you know, we don't want to bring them back to our schools at home because the standards aren't good enough. Though I think that's where Palau needs to really focus on in the next coming years is more, for me, we use the term Agotar Adar Palau, which means the Palauan people first. So with these opportunities that are happening in Palau, how do we let the Palauans benefit from these opportunities? If the tide is rising, let's make sure all boats are rising together.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what's seen in Palau is that it's all the foreigners that are taking advantage, and they're the ones benefiting. Where are the Palauans in this picture? So that's where we're going. Okay.
Yeah, speaking of foreigners too, and Palau, Palau plans to supplement most of its fiscal budget with fishing with tourism, because you've closed those waters, right? How's Palau dealing with the increasing number of tourists with the current infrastructure to accommodate them?
Yeah. So the number of tourists coming to Palau has been a great thing for Palau. I mean, it's the economy is strong because of the tourists. We have to be thankful that they want to visit Palau. With the marine sanctuary, really our only economy outside of the government is tourism, and if you look at global trends, that the Chinese tourists are a big part of that. Mm-hmm. But I think our challenge as a government is that to run our government now, it takes over $100 million to run the government. But what we collect in local revenues, what we call taxes and fees and whatever, is like 60 million. So that means for every dollar we spend to provide services, we're only getting 60 cents back. And so that means that to me our biggest challenge is, so how does Palau not go backwards by having more tourists? Because that's what we're doing. We're putting more stress on infrastructure, more cost for, now we got to put a new sewer line in, spend $30 million on a loan. Then the roads are crowded, so now we got to think about expanding the roads. But how in the end, how are the Palauans benefiting? Right. So we've got to make sure that, yes, it's great to have the tourists, but we got to make sure that they're contributing their share, so that we're taking care of our people. And that's why it's so important to have tax reform. It's important that when the people that are working earn a decent living, so they're not running to Hawaii because that's where their land of opportunity is. So,
there has been an increase in foreign developers, especially the Chinese. What are your thoughts on that too?
The Chinese?
Chinese investors.
Yeah. Well, my opinion is that we welcome investors. Investors are good for the island. But I think we have very clear laws in Palau. For example, we have a foreign investment law that says we welcome investors, but these types of businesses we reserve for Palauans. For example, retail, because we say Palauans know how to do retail, so why do we have to have foreigners doing it? We say Palauans should only be taxi drivers, the transportation business, taking tourists, tour companies should only be Palauan owned. But what we've seen happen is and this didn't just happen with the Chinese. This started with the Japanese, and then it went to the Taiwanese and the Koreans, and now it's the Chinese. Chinese are just much faster and more of them.
Okay.
But what we see is that even those businesses that are supposed to be reserved for Palauans are getting taken over by them partly because of weak enforcement and weak laws to prevent them from getting into those industries. But with the influx of tourists, with the influx of investment, it creates opportunities. But I think we need to make sure that the Palauans are not squeezed out. So we're not the minority. We're not
in their own home.
In their own, yeah. And I'll just give you some statistics. So the number of foreign workers that work in Palau now are already 8,000. The number of Palauans that are working is 5,000. So we're already a minority of the workforce. And, that's a scary thought. The Chinese there's investors that want to come in, and they say on the books possibly another 2,000 hotel rooms. Well, 2,000 hotel rooms will create 6,000 jobs. Who's going to take those jobs? Well, the way we're running things now, it's most likely going to be more foreigners.
Right.
So for sure, we're going to be a minority in Palau very soon, or we can say we're going to soon be extinct. And we won't know what a Palauan is. And if you come off the plane at the airport, that's what you see. You don't see Palauans. There's a tour guide certification program they just did in Palau, and that's run by Koror State. And they ran it, and they had 750 applicants. 600 of those were foreigners. So even selling Palau, those tour guides are foreigners. And so there's some tough policy issues that we need to deal with, and one of them that we've been promoting for years, besides raising the wage, and finally we're thankful that in 2013, first law that came into place was going to raise the minimum, went in to raise the minimum wage 25 cents a year. So this year it'll be $3.50. But the other thing that also needs to be done is we need to make the cost of hiring foreign labor expensive, and use the money that we get from that to improve our education system, get training programs. So it'll do two things. One, it'll raise wages for locals, and it'll provide money for the government to really improve education and training so that we can really benefit from the growing economy. So I think the focus should be not so much how much you bring in, but how do we get more out of what we already have. And that way then you have a balance. You have a sustainable balance. You've protected the environment, but now you've got to make sure that the people also are benefiting so they grow together. One young man told me, he says, you've protected the parrotfish and the Napoleon rats, right? And that's great. But the reason we end up spearing them and selling them to the Chinese hotels is our personal economy is not good. So the challenge is to make sure that fisherman has a new job. He should be a tour guide and making good wages, so he's not encouraged to go catch illegal fish. Yeah, because then when he's benefiting from the tour business, then he's protecting the fish because he knows that's his livelihood. But if you have a Chinese airplane, have a Chinese bus, and a Chinese hotel, and a Chinese restaurant, and a Chinese tour boat, where is the Palauan in that picture? He's not there. So what does he do? Fast cash, which is not good. The other problem we have is drugs. And so we've got to create opportunities for them so they're not either leaving Palau on drugs or illegal fishing, right? And I think that's one of the things that at least I would be able to contribute to it, and that's really what people have asked me why they've asked me to run is we've done a lot of good things for the environment, but it's time to focus on the economy.
People. Oh, in the economy, okay.
Yeah, and the economy, really, it's the individual's economy. How do we help our people? Because, like I told you, they did this study. ADB just did a study. And they actually reported at our economic symposium, and they said, so Palau, based on 2014 data, has the second highest per capita GDP. So, in the Pacific. Cook Islands was number one, we're number two. Probably, as of 2015, we're probably surpassed Cook Islands because we were pretty close. And then they gave another statistic. So, what percentage of your population lives below the poverty line based on standard of living? And they said 25%, which is the worst in the Pacific. So, like I said before, you have a rising tide, everybody must rise together. Yeah. Some people have bigger boats, some smaller boats, but they should all rise. And that's, I think, where the gap is happening. And when the ADB study also said, that's why it's important that you have these important changes. For example, tax reform. We got to think about foreign labor fees and those kinds of things to help get our people employed and at the same time have a fair and transparent tax system that really, at the end of the day, brings the lower income people, makes them better off than they are now. And I know in FSM they've been struggling to try to get the VAT. I think a lot of it has to do with lack of understanding of what it means. I was using the example because one of our outer islands is Triangle. And when I went up there, I said, you guys must have just discovered oil. So for the last 40 years, you've been contributing more tax than anybody else. Because the way the tax system is, under a GRT system, which is what we all use out there in Micronesia, is every time you sell something, you pay another gross revenue tax. So if you're in Triangle, you bought probably from a store in Koror, which just paid an import tax and a gross receipt tax, which adds up to 7%. And when they take it to Triangle, they pay another 4%. So the people in Triangle, which have the least amount of income, pay the most tax under this system.
Right.
And you try to talk about changing it. Oh, no. It's only going to benefit some business because it's lack of understanding. And I think that's really what it's all about. It's trying to bring these issues out. You know, we've talked about the environment. We need to talk about these other issues that I believe that are important for helping improve the lives of Palauan people. So,
thank you. Not to steer in a different direction, I just want to talk about some current events in Palau.
Sure.
Palau's facing a state of emergency from the drought. Yeah. What are some of the challenges that have arisen from that?
Well, in Palau, our water all comes from surface water, rivers. There's actually only three states in Palau that use wells. But the rest of it is surface water. So what's happening in Koror and Iroy right now is they're on a normal day, they treat 4 million gallons of water. 2 weeks ago, the river level had dropped to 800,000 gallons a day. Last week, it was down at 500,000 gallons a day. So you can imagine, it's like 10% of what people daily consume. So as soon as people turn on their faucets, they're filling up buckets. So some people aren't getting water. So it's a major challenge, and we were probably not prepared for it like we should have been. There was a study done in 2004, also by the ADB, about connecting a new line from a northern part of Bubble Valve to the bridge to get water to Koror. At the time, they said that's not a good idea because even in a drought, that river is going to run dry too. So you should think about drilling wells as a backup. And unfortunately, we didn't have those wells ready. So we're trying to play catch up now, and the state of emergencies. But even the wells that we have now, which there's only 6 of them, even if they were fully functioning, we're only talking about 20,000 gallons a day per well, which is only 120,000 gallons. So you can imagine it's a struggle, and people are not, they're not getting the showers they're used to, and I think really it's just trying to get water to make sure that they have water to cook and do their basic necessities and try to get through it and pray for rain.
It's kind of tough out there right now.
Yeah, and I'm sure FSM and Marshalls was already having severe drought problems. So, yeah.
We're kind of running out of time here. I just want to try to squeeze in a couple more things real quick. There's a lot to look forward politically for Micronesia as a whole. Talks of terminating the compact for the FSM. Guam talking about decolonization, and compact funding is scheduled to end in the near future, in 2023, I think. They're going to be talking about it again. What do you think is the future of Palau's relationship with the U.S.?
Well, our compact is a little different from
the
FSM. We don't actually have I guess it's, our term is perpetual. It's only the funding that ends.
Right.
But the denial rights we gave to the U.S. forever. I think from Palau's standpoint, from an investment standpoint and for security, the relationship with the U.S., that's an important part of it. Being part of the U.S. gives us the security that we need, and I think it gives investors confidence that, there's some stability there. We can never protect our own borders. I mean, that's impossible for us, and we live so close to, we border Indonesia, we border the Philippines, and both hot spots, and so we're at the tip of the spear, you could say. And I guess FSM and Marshalls, they're kind of in the middle of the Pacific. We're over there, and we need protection. I think it's important that we work with the United States, and they've been our development partner and they've helped us, and we need to see, other ways they can help us grow, because if we have a strong economy and we have, good infrastructure, we're stable, it's good for the region, it's good for everybody. Right. And I think that's the message that we really need to get across to the U.S. It's a matter of partnership. Unfortunately, our compact, round 2, is still sitting in the U.S. Congress, and they have not acted on it. But hopefully that can be resolved, because there's also important infrastructure in there, that funding that's in there that needs to be developed. And of course, anytime you delay that, that also delays economic development.
Right.
So.
Well, I think we have more questions, but I think we're running out of time. I want to make sure you get to your next engagement. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity, just share any final thoughts or any message you'd like to give to our viewers.
Oh. Yeah, I guess my answers are a little long-winded.
No, they were really good.
First of all, I thank you for the opportunity to given to me to share a little bit about Palau and why I've tossed my name in the hat to take on this challenge. I really love Palau, and one of the things, and my dad likes to share it, is that I had of course, I have the opportunity to be a U.S. citizen because my mom is a U.S. citizen, and I was born in Baltimore, so I'm automatically a U.S. citizen. And so one of the things is when I became a senator, I had to give up those rights. So I went in to see the U.S. Charge d'Affaires at the time, because we didn't have an ambassador. And one of the processes you go through in denouncing is they have to ask you, are you insane, or is there something mentally wrong with you? We're just checking. Yeah, because what they told me is that once you denounce, you can never become a U.S. citizen again, because that's like the worst thing you can do, because you're denouncing the United States. And it was hard for me, because it was like saying I was denouncing my mom, right? When you're half, that's. But my mom understands. That's our home. That's where we live. That's. Anyway, we're part of the global community, and I just want to let the people back home know that really the reason I'm running is I love Palau. I believe Palau can do much better, and give me a chance. And let's see what we can do in the next 4 years. So, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a really great opportunity for us. We're really thankful to have this chance to interview and talk with you. Not too many times we get to talk to presidential hopefuls over here. So thank you very much. And to our viewers, please remember to like our page. If you're in Palau, remember to go to the polls and
vote.
And just thank you very much, and catch us again when you can.